हरिः ओम्। नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यस्य वर्गस्य अद्य पञ्चमः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे वयं स्वरम् अनुसृत्य कृतान् वर्णविभागान् जानीमः। आदौ वन्दनम्। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। प्रारम्भे वर्गस्य प्रयोजनद्वयं स्मारयामि। अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य 400 सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं, तथा च अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य कण्ठस्थीकरणम्। इदानीं शिक्षाशास्त्रस्य विषयान् अधिकृत्य अस्माकम् अध्ययनं प्रचलत् अस्ति। अस्मिन्नेव अध्ययने आदौ अस्माभिः वर्णस्य निर्माणं कथं भवति, तस्य पञ्चसोपानानि कानि, अस्मिन् विषये अयं श्लोकः दृष्टः। आत्मा बुद्ध्या समेत्यार्थान् मनोयुङ्क्ते विवक्षया मनः कायाग्निमाहन्ति सः प्रेरयति मारुतं मारुतस्तूरसी चरन् मन्दं जनयति स्वरम्। अत्र निर्दिष्टानि पञ्चसोपानानि कानि सन्ति इति चेत् आदौ ध्वनेः कर्ता स्वयम् आत्मा एव बुद्धौ विद्यमानं विचारं शब्दरूपेण प्रकटीकर्तुं मनोवृत्तिम् इत्युक्ते मनः नियुनक्ति। तत् नियुक्तं मनः जठराग्निम् उद्दीपयति। सः जठराग्निः उरसि विद्यमानं प्राणवायुम् ऊर्ध्वदिशि प्रेरयति। अयं प्रेरितः वायुः ऊर्ध्वदिशि गच्छन् तन्त्रिप्रदेशात् अग्रे गत्वा कण्ठादिषु अवयवेषु इत्युक्ते कण्ठः जिह्वा ओष्ठौ दन्ताः इत्यादिषु अवयवेषु आघातं कृत्वा श्रूयमाणस्य ध्वनेः निर्माणं करोति। So the air passes through all these organs. Not every organ is involved, but there will be tantris, the vocal cords, tongue will be involved, some of these organs, sometimes nasika, sometimes kantha, and so on. Finally, the sound comes out of the mouth. तदनन्तरम् एतेषां वर्णानां विषये अग्रे अस्माभिः वर्णविभाजनस्य पद्धतयः अपि दृष्टाः। पाणिनीयशिक्षायां पञ्चभिः प्रकारैः वर्णविभागाः कृताः वर्तन्ते। स्वरतः कालतः स्थानात् प्रयत्नात् अनुप्रदानतः। एतेभ्यः कालम् अनुसृत्य ये वर्णविभागाः इत्युक्ते ह्रस्वदीर्घप्लुताः, एतेषाम् अध्ययनम् अस्माभिः पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे कृतम्। अद्य द्वितीयं विभागम् इत्युक्ते स्वरम् अनुसृत्य वर्णविभागाः के उदात्तः अनुदात्तः स्वरितः इत्येतेषां विषये विस्तरेण पश्यामः। परन्तु तस्मात् पूर्वं कालम् अनुसृत्य वर्णविभागाः इत्यस्मिन् विषये पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे अस्माभिः यत् किमपि अधीतम् अस्ति तस्य किञ्चित् पुनरावर्तनं झटिति कुर्मः। तत्र आदौ अस्माभिः वृत्तिः नाम किम् इति दृष्टम्। वर्णोच्चारणस्य गतिः वृत्तिः नाम्ना ज्ञायते। इयं त्रिविधा अस्ति। तिस्रः वृत्तीः उपदिशन्ति वाचः विलम्बितां मध्यमां द्रुतां च। प्रत्येकं वृत्तेः प्रयोजनम् अपि तत्र अस्माभिः अधीतम्। अभ्यासार्थे द्रुतां वृत्तिं प्रयोगार्थे तु मध्यमां शिष्याणामुपदेशार्थे कुर्याद् वृत्तिं विलम्बिताम्। एतादृशीं वृत्तिं निश्चित्य तदनन्तरम् एव मात्रायाः चिन्तनं करणीयम्। किमर्थमिति चेत् प्रत्येकं वृत्तौ अ इति स्वरस्य उच्चारणार्थम् आवश्यकः कालः भिद्यते, अपि च सः एव कालः मात्रा इति नाम्ना ज्ञायते। इमाम् एव मात्राम् अनुसृत्य स्वराणाम् उच्चारणस्य त्रयभेदाः अस्माभिः दृष्टाः। ह्रस्वः, दीर्घः तथा च प्लुतः। तत्र अयं श्लोकः अपि दृष्टः। एकमात्रो भवेद् ह्रस्वः द्विमात्रो दीर्घ उच्यते। त्रिमात्रस्तु प्लुतो ज्ञेयः व्यञ्जनं त्वर्धमात्रिकम्। अवर्णः, ईवर्णः, उवर्णः तथा ऋवर्णः इत्येतेषां सर्वेषां ह्रस्वदीर्घप्लुत इति त्रयः भेदाः सन्ति। लु इति वर्णस्य दीर्घभेदः नास्ति, अतः ह्रस्वभेदः प्लुतभेदः। अवशिष्टानां चतुर्णां वर्णानाम् इत्युक्ते ए ऐ ओ औ इत्येतेषां ह्रस्वभेदः न वर्तते, अतः दीर्घभेदः तथा च प्लुतभेदः। अन्ते व्यञ्जनानाम् अयोगवाहानां च अर्धममात्रायाः इत्येव उच्चारणकालः। तत्र विशिष्टं नाम तस्य कृते न दत्तमस्ति, केवलम् अर्धं मात्रायाः इत्येव उच्चारणकालः। एतत् सर्वं दृष्ट्वा तदनन्तरं मात्रायाः सन्दर्भेण भिन्नाः मुख्याः संज्ञाः याः व्याकरणशास्त्रे अपि प्रयुज्यन्ते, शिक्षाशास्त्रे अपि तासाम् उपयोगः अस्ति। एताः सर्वाः संज्ञाः अस्माभिः अधीताः। लघुस्वरः इति किं, गुरुस्वरः इति किम्, अवसानम् इति किं, संहिता इति किम् इत्यादिकम्। तत्र संहितायाः विषये पुनरेकवारं वदामि। वर्णानाम् आतिशय सान्निध्यम् इत्युक्ते द्वयोः वर्णयोः मध्ये विरामः नास्ति, नो चेत् स्वभावसिद्धः अर्धमात्राकालिकः एव व्यवायः, तदपेक्षया अधिकः नास्ति चेत् तत्र संहिता अस्ति इति उच्यते। इयं संहिता कुत्र कुत्र नित्या अस्ति इति चेत् संहितैकपदे नित्या, नित्या धातूपसर्गयोः, नित्या समासे, वाक्ये तु सा विवक्षाम् अपेक्षते। अत्र वाक्ये तु सा विवक्षाम् अपेक्षते इत्यस्य सन्दर्भेण अस्माभिः सन्धिकार्यस्य सन्दर्भेण अपि किञ्चित् अवगतम्। So in general, it is not the sandhi which is optional or not, but it is the samhita whose optionality we should think about. And in a sentence, samhita is always optional in the sense it depends on the speaker, and therefore vakye sandhi api vivaksham anusarati. Samhita asti chet sandhi nityah, samhita nasti chet sandhi api na sambhavati iti vivekaha. Now, in this particular context, before starting today's material, I want to clarify a few things. So technically, whatever I am talking right now was already discussed in the last class, but it seems that there is still some level of confusion, and from some of the messages on the WhatsApp group, it appears that some people are still not clear about specifically this concept of Anuswara Sandhi. It is also possible that they have not yet come out of the shock that they have been learning something completely wrong for years together. But whatever is the case, this learning wrong things in the past and correcting them now is something that we are going to encounter in this course every now and then. So it's better if you get ready for that. But before that, let me quickly clarify things once again. So first point, there was some comment, some discussion on the group that Makara is same as Anuswara. Somebody said Nakara is same as Anuswara. So just to clarify, crystal clear words, Makara, Nakara, Anuswara are completely different entities. Anuswaraha iti pruthak varnaha tasya varnamalayam vishishtam sthanam vartate. So in the tomorrow's class, we are going to talk about the Uchcharana sthana of Makara and Nakara and Anuswara. At that time, this will be even more clear. A related point in that context, somebody said that even if there is a Makara, you can put a dot. Somebody else said even if there is Anuswara, you can put a like the letter Ma. So nothing like that. The dot on the letter can only represent Anuswara. It cannot represent Makara. It cannot represent Nakara. In the same way, writing makara in or nakara in front of that particular swara will represent the corresponding vyanjana, makara or nakara, and not the anuswara. So specifically in a sentence, if you don't intend to have the samhita, samhitayaha vivaksha nasti chet, makaraha eva lekhaniyaha, you cannot write hari dot vande. You have to write harim vande. Explicit ma has to be pronounced even if there is a wa over there. If somebody is still half asleep and thinks that when there is a vyanjan and anuswara should be put, it is a wrong rule. Forget about where you have learned, unlearn and move on. I cannot be more explicit. अत्र मकारः एव लेखनीयः, अत्र डॉट इति चिह्नं लेखितुं न शक्यते. संहिता अस्ति चेत् मकारस्य लेखनं uchitam nasti. So reverse rule is also there. If there is a samhita, you have to force harim vande with a dot. You cannot write harim vande with a makara. So this is something that I think I have clarified it now thoroughly well. One last comment. Writing continuously harim vande with a dot is not wrong. All that you are saying is I am assuming a samhita between harim and vande. But sometimes somebody writes harim and vande, don't think that it is wrong. It is as correct as harim vande with a dot. In fact, I would go ahead and say harim vande with a makara is actually more contextually correct. When you are writing a sentence where you are not doing sandhis anywhere. So for example, you are saying Ramaha Vanam Gachati. Now, in place of Ramaha, you are not writing Ramo. You are saying Ramaha. So everywhere else in the sentence, you are not doing the sandhis, which means everywhere else in the sentence, you are not assuming samhita. So there is no reason to be inconsistent and assume samhita when it goes to Vanam and Gachati. So if you write Ramaha Vanam Gachati with a dot, while it is correct, I would go a step ahead and say it is inconsistent, because at some places you are assuming samhita and some places you are not assuming samhita. It is definitely not wrong. You are free to assume samhita wherever you want, and you are free to not assume samhita wherever else you want. But just as a matter of consistency, so it's like writing half a page in blue ink and half a page in red ink and next half a page in say white or black ink or blue ink, whatever. So yellow ink. So there is nothing wrong in it, but it's introducing some level of inconsistency. Anyway, let's move on from this topic. There was yet another question in the homework that a lot of people were confused about. Prayoga Sharanaha Vayyakaranaha. Now, Sharana in Marathi and other languages means you are gone into, you're surrendering to them. So that's not the meaning in Sanskrit over here. Sharana ityasya arthaha rakshakaha iti asti. So Vayyakaranaha prayogasya rakshakaha santi. Ityukte whatever are the prayogas in the language. And prayogas in the language doesn't mean prayogas that you come up with, prayogas that scholars have attested. So Shishtaihi prayuktaha, Shishtaihi anumitaha ye prayogaha. Tesham sarvesham sadhutva jnapanam vyakaranena karaniyam iti vayyakaranaam karyam asti. So there is a question in the homework, give an example. You can pick up any example, say pathati iti bhashayam prayuktah shabdah sadhu asti. अतः व्याकरणे तस्य प्रकृति विभाग प्रत्यय विभागः पठ इति धातुः ति इति प्रत्ययः अनेन प्रकारेण क्रियते. So literally pick up any word, show the prakriti pratyay vibhaga and just say that Vyakarana has rules for that. At this stage, this much is enough. You don't have to go ahead, go beyond at least in the beginning part of this course. We will have more elaborate understanding of this topic when we go ahead in the course. So this was basically I wanted to clarify. Let's move on to the today's topic. Swaram anusrutya varna vibhagaha. So asmabhihi kalam anusrutya varna vibhagaha adhitaha. Idanim swaram anusrutya varna vibhagaha. So just like the kalam anusrutya, there were three types, rasva, dirgha and pluta. Swaram anusrutya varna vibhagaha apitrayaha, udattaha, anudattaha and swaritaha. Now, most of you probably are aware of these terms, udatta, anudatta, and swarita, specifically in the context of Vedic chantings. What we are going to learn today is that these are not just limited to the Vedic chantings, rather every word in Laukika Samskrita also must actually be pronounced using udatta, anudatta, and swarita intonations. Unfortunately, that style is becoming completely extinct today. There are still some scholars who attempt to pronounce that, and their efforts are really appreciated. But unfortunately, in the language, in the spoken Sanskrit language, this style has completely seen lost these days. Anyway, let's talk about these in more detail so that you will at least understand what is this udatta, anudatta, and swarita. So let's start with this. स्वरम् अनुसृत्य वर्णविभागाः. सो पाणिनीयशिक्षायाम् इदं वाक्यं वर्तते. उदात्तश्च अनुदात्तश्च स्वरितश्च स्वराः त्रयः. The swaras are of three types: udatta, anudatta, swarita. And how is this classification done? Akara, akara, and so on. Ityadinam uchcharana samaye, while you pronounce the vowels, only the vowels, a, and so on up to o, au. Etesham uchcharana samaye. You remember I just mentioned that the Vayu is moving upwards all the way from the chest region up to Kantha, Jivha, and so on. So in this entire flow of Vayu, स्वराणाम इत्युक्ते अ आ इत्यादीनाम उच्चारण समये उरः शिरः कण्ठः तालु इत्येतेषाम् अवयवानां कीदृशी स्थितिः वर्तते. हाउ इज the characteristic structure or changes in the structure of these organs, and अवयवस्य कस्मिन् विभागे तस्य वायोः प्रकर्षेण आघातः भवति. So if you imagine that say kantha or say talu is divided into two parts, which part is it, the upper part or the lower part? Which part does the vayu strike? Which part the air hits more predominantly? See how detailed studies have been done in our shastras. So based on these questions or based on the answers to these questions, pratyekam varnaha udattaha anudattaha and swaritah iti tridha vibhajyate. Pratyekam varnaha means not vyanjanas, only a up to o, au. And the confusion of terminology here is that these words udatta, anudatta, and swarita are actually called swara in Vyakarana Shastra. So anywhere in Ashtadhyayi, if you see the word swara, it doesn't indicate a, I, I. It indicates udatta, anudatta, swarita. So Vyakarana Shastre swaraha iti shabdena udatta, anudatta, swarita bhedaha eva prasiddhaha santi. So then what about a, I, and so on? Well, the Vyakarana Shastra uses a different name for it. It uses the name called Acha. Most of you know how Acha is created using Pratyaharas, but I don't expect you to know that. I'm going to teach about that in upcoming classes. But for now, let's take my word that this particular I, and so on are called Acha. It is a Chakaranta Shabda, Ach, Achau, Achaha. So Acha, and the Swara word is reserved for Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita. So going ahead, whenever there is no confusion, we can use a swara word for anything. But when it is possible to have some confusion, we will specifically use the word swara for udatta, anudatta, swarita, and use the word acha for the vowels. As I mentioned, udattadayah bhedaha kevalam a, a ityetesham krute eva vartante, vyanjananam udattadayah bhedaha na santi. And different shastras have different take on this. So just a piece of information, I don't expect you to remember this or know this, but this Natya Shastra, which is a Sahitya Grantha written by Bharata Muni, in the Natya Shastra, there are 4 Bhedas, not 3. So there is this shloka in Natya Shastra, Udattascha Anudattascha Swaritah Kampitaha Tatha Varnaha Chatvar Eva Sihu Pathya Yoge Tapoghanaha. So they add another layer on the top of it, Kampita. Now they have their own definitions of Kampita, but in Vyakarana Shastra, this word is never seen. As far as Vyakarana Shastra is considered, as far as Shiksha Shastra is concerned, it's only 3 Bhedas, Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita. Now the main question, what exactly is Udatta, what exactly is Anudatta, and so on. So as I mentioned, Udatta is a way of pronouncing a vowel with certain structural changes in those organs. So the general set of organs that we mentioned, chest and Shwasanalika and say tantris and so on, if during the pronunciation of the letters, these organs become somewhat hard, somewhat stiff, and somewhat narrow, then the letter being pronounced is called Udatta. Let's see what Mahabhashyam says in this context. Ayamaha Darunyam, and Khasya Anuta. So Mahabhashya characterizes the Swara Udatta by 3 words. Don't worry, if you know the meaning of this already, you are in the wrong class. I don't expect you to know the meanings of this. I'm telling you this. But understand, what are the 3 characteristics? Ayamaha, Darunyam, and Khasya Anuta. It's written as Anuta Khasya, but it has to be read as Khasya Anuta. So what is this Ayamaha? Ayamaha is a contraction of the organs. Whichever organ that Vayu passes, they get contracted. So Gatranam Nigrahaha. Darunyam, the harshness of the sound. Swarasya Rukshata. And Khasya Anuta. Kha means avakasha, space. So the space through which the Vayu is flowing, the air passage, that becomes a small. Anu means small. So the narrowness of the air passage, kanthasya samvrutata, it closes. Closes means doesn't mean completely gets closed. Otherwise, how will Vayu flow? It basically constricts, it narrows. So how does the Uchchaih Karani means Udat Tattva? So how is Udat Tattva being described in Mahabhashya? Ayamaha, which is nothing but Gatranam Nigrahaha. Darunyam, which is nothing but Swarasya Rukshata. And Khasyanuta, which is nothing but Kanthasya contraction Samvrutata. So this is described as Udatta. Paniniya Shiksha, the Vruddha Patha of Paniniya Shiksha. Paniniya Shiksha comes in 3 flavors. There is one Shlokatmaka Shiksha, there is one Laghu Patha, and there is one Vruddha Patha. So the Vruddha Patha of Paniniya Shiksha has this particular wording. Yada sarvanganusari prayatnaha tivraha bhavati tada gatrasya nigrahaha. So sarvanganusari prayatnaha tivraha. Air is blown out with more efforts, hard effort is done. Tada gatrasya nigrahaha. It's written over here. Contraction of the organ happens. Kanthabilasya cha anutvam. The kantha region where the sound enters the mouth cavity, that gets constricted. Swarasya cha vayoho tivragatitvat rauksham bhavati. So rauksha has to be connected with swarasya. Swarasya rauksham bhavati. The swara becomes ruksha. It's written over here. Swarasya rukshata, harshness of the sound. So swarasya rauksham bhavati. Kimartham bhavati? Vayoho tivra gatitva. The air flows with more speed. This whole process which generates the sound is called udatta. Tam udattam achakshate. And there is yet another angle to it which is considered by Panini. You also see this in the Vedas. Vayu nimittam urdhva gamanam gatranam. So these organs are slightly lifted upwards. So not just they get contracted and they get hard, but they also get lifted upwards. So Vayu nimittam urdhva gamanam gatranam tena udattaha iti nama. So why is the name given udatta? Ud going upwards, that's the actual organs which are actually moving slightly upwards. So Vayu nimittam urdhvagamanam gatranam saha udattaha. Exactly that is the reason why in Ashtadhyayi Panini creates this sutram called Uchchaihi Udattaha. I am not teaching the sutra. We will learn the sutra officially sometimes later. But for now, you should be in a good position to understand what's going on. Uchchaihi, upward. What is upward? Not volume. We are not talking about volume. We are not talking about pitch, not upward, higher pitch. We are talking about urdhvagamanam gatranam. The organs are lifted upwards. That is udatta. Not just that, there is something else that happens. Talva, and that's being explained in Siddhanta Kaumudi. Talvadishu sabhageshu sthaneshu urdhva bhage nishpannaha ach udatta samyasyat. So talvadishu means all those organs, kantha, talu and all that. This diagram is very important. I'm going to refer to it again and again. So this dantaha, oshtha, talu, murdha, kantha and so on. If you hypothetically make 2 parts of that organ, then because of all these changes in the structure of these organs, the vayu hits the upper part of the kantha or talu or whatever. Now I have only theoretical knowledge about this. I cannot pronounce it and show, or even if I pronounce a show, it's hard for you to understand. So we have to believe what is written in the commentaries. We cannot dissect and actually see what's going on. But the Shastras have had their own ways to find this out. And what we learn from the Shastras is the organs like Kantha, Talu, and so on are divided into two parts. If the Vayu hits the upper part more predominantly, it is called Udatta. So understand multiple dimensions and all of them are coming together. So one is Gatranam Nigraha. The organs are contracted. Swarasya Rukshata. The sound is becoming harsh. Kanthasya Samvrutata. The air passage is becoming narrow. Urdhvagamanam Gatranam. The organs themselves are lifted a little upwards. And urdhva bhage nishpannaha. Ach. The air predominantly hits the upper part or top part of that particular organ. All these happen together. It's not a permutation or a mix and match. All these happen together, and the e that's generated out of it is called udatta. See how beautifully all these things have been explained in our Shastra. And if this is Udatta, then what is Anudatta? Exactly opposite is Anudatta. So, Anvavasargaha Mardavam Khasya Uruta. Whatever three words we talked earlier, Ayamaha, Darunyam, and Khasya Anuta, exactly those are being reversed over here. So, let's go back to the previous slide. It will take a while, but yeah. So we said Gatranam Nigraha, Swarasya Rukshata, and Kanthasya Samvrutata. So that's being reversed. Gatranam Shithilata. Now the organs are slightly relaxed. Swarasya Snigdhata. Earlier it was Rukshata, now it is a Snigdhata. So sound is now not very harsh. It is soft. It is sweet. And Kanthasya Mahatta. Khasya Uruta means widening of the air passage. Earlier it was constriction of the air passage, now it is widening of the air passage. So mandaha prayatnaha bhavati, you don't put more efforts. Tada gatrasya sramsanam, sramsanam is relaxation. Kanthabilasya mahatvam, expansion of the kantha, the throat. Swarasya cha snigdhata, soft sound comes out. Kimartham snigdhata? Vayoho mandagatitva. The air is not hitting hard, so the sound is soft. Tam anudattam achakshate. And then Vayu nimittam adhogamanam gatranam. Therefore, the gatras are slightly down. If the muscles get relaxed, the gatras are down. If the muscles get contracted, the gatras are lifted. So in this particular case, the muscles are relaxed, the gatra is down. Adhogamanam gatranam saha anudattaha. Therefore, Panini says nichaihi anudattaha. That nichaihi can mean two things. One, the gatras are in a little bit downward position, and therefore the Vayu is now going to hit the lower part of those two hypothetical parts. So same sentence, only the words are being changed. Talvadishu sabhageshu sthaneshu adhobhage nishpannaha ach anudatta samnyasyat. So we saw that two exactly contradictory states of these organs. One state where the organs are predominantly contracted, the sound is harsh, the Vayu passage is narrow, is called Udatta. The reverse of that is Anudatta, and the intermediate state where in some amount of time it is like Udatta, and for some other amount of time it is like Anudatta. The intermediate state is called Swarita. So yaha ubhaya gunaha saha tritiyam akhyam labhate. Akhya means name. So a swara which is pronounced in such a way that in the initial half part it behaves like Udatta, and in the next half part it behaves like Anudatta, that is called Swarita. So yasya varnasya uchcharane adau udatta sadrishi avayavasthitihi. For the first half part, तदनन्तरम् अनुदात्तसदृशी अवयवस्थितिः सः अच्वर्णः स्वरितः नाम्ना ज्ञायते. So in the Vriddha Patha, we have udatta, anudatta, swara, sannipata. Sannipata means closeness. Remember, we saw this word earlier also when we were talking about the word sanyoga. Vyanjana sannipata is called sanyoga, closeness of the vyanjanas. So here, udatta, anudatta, sannipata. So the udatta behavior of the organs and anudatta behavior of the organs are immediately one after the other. So udatta, anudatta, swara sannipatat, swaritaha. And the organs are neither going up, neither going down. They remain in a horizontal fashion. So vayu nimittam tiryak gamanam gatranam. Or you can say they are actually oscillating. They will first go up, then they will come down. Eventually they are at that same position. So vayu nimittam tiryak gamanam gatranam tena yaha uchyate saha swaritaha. Panini creates two sutras for Swaritaha. He says, Samaharaha Swaritaha. Samahara means a state of balance. That state of balance is called Swarita. And then he clarifies immediately next sutra, Tasya Aditaha Udattam Ardharaswam. We'll not go with the details of what is Ardharaswam and all that. At appropriate time, I'm going to teach this sutra. But just focus on the first two words. Tasya aditaha udaptam. The half initial part is udapta. Siddhanta Kaumudi clarifies this further. Swaritasya aditaha ardham udaptam bodhyam. So if aditaha ardha is udatta, what about the remaining part? Uttarardham tu parisheshad anudattam. Parishesha means whatever is remaining. Now if udatta is gone, what is remaining? Anudatta. So uttarardham parisheshad anudattam. In this way, depending on the contraction and relaxation of the organs, depending on the harshness and sweetness of the sound, depending on the narrowing and widening of the air passage, depending on uplifting and downlifting of organs, depending on which part the Vayu hits more predominantly, the Ach letters are classified as Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita. And how do we write them? So just like the way Haswa Dirgha Pluta, we had a system of writing. For Pluta, there was no fixed letter, so we wrote a 3 number. So in the same way, we have a specific system of writing these letters. For an Anudatta Swara, we put an underline. So a with an underline is Anudattaha Akaraha. Technically, it is not an underline, it is even closer to the letter than underlining. So A with an immediate adhorekha line below it is Anudatta Akaraha. Now I am just telling how it is written in the script. I am not trained in pronouncing that, so I cannot show you a demo. But I am sure there are many people around you, probably some of the members in the class here are trained in these kind of pronunciations. If you want, you can send a sample of Udatta Anudatta Swarita on as an audio on the group. I'll definitely appreciate that. But A with an underline is Anudatta Akaraha. Pluta A with an underline is Anudattaha Pluta Akaraha. So that's for Anudatta. Remember, remember the ordering. The way I taught Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita. But now I'm telling you the symbols. First, I'm telling the symbol for Anudatta, which is Gatranam, relaxation, and so on. That's the Anudatta. Then the next is a Swarita, which is the balanced state. So for Swarita, there is a vertical line. So A with a Swarita is called Swarita Akaraha. Not to be confused with the mantra. A with a straight vertical line and very small is called Swarita Akara. Sorry, Swarita Akara. Same Swarita Akara, A with a vertical line and Pluta A with a vertical line. So you write an A, you write the number 3 to indicate a Pluta, and you write a vertical line, so that becomes Swarita Pluta Akaraha. So that takes care of Anudatta and Swarita. And if you don't write anything, no symbol is needed. That is Udatta. So Udatta Akaraha is just A. Udatta Akaraha is A. Udatta Plutaha Akaraha is a 3. And here is a sample example how these symbols appear in a shloka. So now I cannot recite this, but I'll explain you. So you have G with an underline. So now understand, Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, Bhedas are only for Swaras, that is Ach letters, not for Vyanjanas. So this is actually half G plus a with an underline. So it is anudatta a. Then the next is ana, which is basically ana plus udatta a, because udatta swara does not have any line. Next is a naam with two vertical lines. It is an extended swarita. I'll talk about it in a minute. But it is a swarita for all practical purposes. It's just that it is an elongated swarita, so you write two double lines. So na is basically na, which is the normal vyanjana, plus a with, so it is the dirgha version of a varna, and it is swarita because urdhva rekha is written, and so on. You should be able to decipher uh, all the letters in this way. There is actually an exercise in the homework today. You have to pick the first shloka, I think, of Rigveda, and I have given you the link. You have to pick the first shloka of Rigveda, understand those ups and downs, and explain which is udatta, which is anudatta, and which is swarita. So combining everything together, what we learned in the last class and what we are learning in today's class, कालम अनुसृत्य त्रयः भेदाः, अकारस्य विषये वदन् अस्मि. ह्रस्वः दीर्घः प्लुतः, कालम अनुसृत्य त्रयः भेदाः, सः प्रत्येकम् उदात्तादिभेदेन त्रिधा. So as I showed on the previous slide, that a itself, all the examples on the slide are only for a. If you take a and if you take just the hrasva a, it comes in now three flavors: udatta rasva, anudatta rasva, and swarita rasva. Similarly, if you take a, it's going to come in three flavors, and similarly, if you take a pluta, a, it's now going to come in three flavors. So akarasya kalamanusritya trayah bhedaha saha pratyekamudattadibhedena tridha. 3 times 3 is 9. Akaraha navavidhaha. It's going to increase in tomorrow's class, but for now it's navavidhaha. Same for ikaraha navavidhaha, ukaraha navavidhaha, rukaraha api navavidhaha. What about lukara? Give me 1 second. Okay. What about lukara? Lu ityasya dirghaha nasti. So it is only, just give me 1 second. So lu ityasya dirghaha nasti. Atah saha kevalam hrasva samyakaha pluta samyakaha. So it's only 2 and then multiplied by 3. Saha pratyeka mudatta adhibhedena tridha. So 2 multiplied by 3 is lukaraha shadvidhaha. And finally, ekar, aikar, okar, aukaraha. Etesham sarvesham kevalam dirghapluta bhedau. So 2 multiplied by 3 again, shadvidhaha. Ekaraha shadvidha, okaraha, aikaraha, aukaraha. So udatta, anudatta, swarita comes for all the vowels. So that 3 is always a multiplier. The question is whom that 3 gets multiplied to. Does it get multiplied to 3 or is it 3 multiplied by 2? That's finally going to determine the number. So a, e, u, ru are all 9. Lu, a, I, o are all 6. At this moment, I want to take a pause and wait to see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'll move ahead. There seems to be something happening with my system. Give me 1 minute till you think of the questions as well. Okay, so there are Krishna Kumar Mahodaya, Prichita.
Mahodaya, this udatta, anudatta, swarita, by using it, does the meaning of meaning changes?
Yeah, wait for 2 more slides. I'm going to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I couldn't find the hand raising. The question was in the Samahara Swaritaha. What is the Samahara is an aggregation, correct?
Samahara in this particular context means balancing or equality. So basically, or you can even consider it as aggregation, doesn't really matter because it is udatta and anudatta being aggregated in a same place. That's going to be called swarita. Doesn't really matter in this context.
Got it.
Vidya Bhagini.
अस्ति महोदय तत्र वेदेषु यदा यथा उच्चार्यते तथा एव भवति वा व्याकरणे अपि तत्र अनुदात्त उदात्तानां स्वरितानां च?
तथैव भवति. Exactly. There is no difference. What I told you in Vyakarana is same in Rigveda, same in Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. In fact, on this slide itself, I am going to explain that part.
अस्तु, धन्यवादः.
Yeah, so there is no difference of what is Udatta, what is Anudatta, and what is Swarita. Udatta is defined as, because if you see those previous slides, where is that? So I'm quoting what the Veda Bhashyakara says. So is exactly what the Veda Bhashyakara is saying, which is same as what is in the Shiksha, which is same as what is in Ashtadhyayi. I have a question. One of maybe you, Vidya, can you tell me, is there any issue in seeing the presentation? Are you seeing only presentation in the half screen, or some random characters are appearing in the presentation?
न महोदय,
सम्यक् अस्ति किल? Because there's something happening on my computer, but I mean, I can stay with it as long as the recording is not having a problem.
सम्यक् अस्ति.
Astu. Okay. If there are no, प्रश्न अस्ति वा?
आं महोदय. महोदय, you said अकारस्य नवभेदाः भवन्ति इति. अकारः avarnasya.
Avarnasya, good catch. So my mistake. When you say akara, it is always one letter. So I should have said, very nice, I should have said avarna. If while teaching I said akara, if it is, I don't think it is written on this slide. This is wrong. I'll fix this. Avarnaha navavidhaha, I varnaha navavidhaha, U varna. So everywhere it should say avarnaha navavidha. Very nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there is no, I mean, I have mentioned in the previous class, there is no hard and fast rule that kara gives only one bheda, but this is how we see in the commentaries, and there is no reason for me to deviate. So I'll fix this slide and say a varna, I varna, and so on. But hopefully you all got the idea. Agre gacchamaha. If there is anything else, I'll wait. So one fundamental confusion that people have, I had many years ago, is that Udatta means high pitch, Swarita means middle pitch, and Anudatta means low pitch. So now by this time I have explained that Udatta, the up meaning in Udatta, has nothing to do with pitch. It is about upward movement of the gatras, or it is about the Vayu hitting on the upper part of the organ. So that's Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita. The words now have been explained. But the question still remains, what is the relationship of these Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita with the pitch? So when it comes to pitch, we have those 7 swaras: Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, Ni. Sa is the lowest pitch, goes all the way up to Ni, which is the highest pitch. And in Paniniya Shiksha, the pitch of these swaras and their relationship with Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita has been beautifully and perfectly explained without any ambiguity. So there is a shloka in Paniniya Shiksha which says, Udatte Nishada Gandharau. So see this, let's pull these lines, Udatta, Swarita, and Anudatta. Udatte Nishada Gandharau. So Gandhara and Nishada. Gandhara is G, Nishada is Mi. These are Udatta letters. Anudatte Rishabha Dhaivatau. The Rishabha is Anudatta and Dhaivata, Dha is also Anudatta. Swarita Prabhava Yete Shadja Madhyama Panchamaha. The remaining 3, the Shadja, that is Sa, Madhyama, that is Ma, and Panchama, that is Pa, are Swarita. So now see this. Remember, the pitch goes from left to right. So smallest, least pitch is for Sa and highest pitch is for Ni. And now see how these wave forms are happening. Sa is Swarita, Re becomes Anudatta, suddenly Ga becomes Udatta. Madhyama and Panchama are both Swarita, goes down to Anudatta for Dhaivata, goes all the way for Nishada. Now it turns out that even though there are 7 swaras, it is only the Samaveda in which the 7 swaras are used. In remaining 3 Vedas, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda, only 4 swaras are used. Actually 3 swaras, but as I mentioned, Swarita gets divided into 2 parts. There is further Shastra on that. So only 4 swaras get used, 1 Udatta, 1 Anudatta, and 2 Swaritas. So 4 swaras are used in these main Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda, and the same is being carried in Vyakarana and Shiksha and so on everywhere else. So except for Sama Veda, Sama is about singing. So no wonder it has all the 7 swaras, I think all 12 swaras with those Tivra and other Komala, all 12 swaras will be there. But in all other places, there are only 4 swaras. And which are these 4 swaras? These are Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama. The central 4 swaras are used in all the Vedic chanting. Now you might ask why this convention. You can always choose any other 4 swaras, but this is the convention that has been chosen, or this is the convention that people follow. So the Rishabha is used for Anudatta, Gandhara is used for Udatta, and Madhyama and Panchama are used for Swarita. So this Madhyama is actually called Prachaya. This is a different name. Panchama is for Swarita. So if you keep Madhyama aside for now, or even if it's just next to each other, so it doesn't really matter. But to be very technically correct, Gandhara, Rishabha, and Panchama, these correspond to Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, and the Madhyama is a different type of Swarita. We'll not go in more details. But now what does it mean from pitch point of view? Who is the highest pitch now? Remember, the pitch goes from left to right. So who is the highest pitch? It is Madhyama and Panchama, which both of them are Swarita. So it means Swarita Swara is the highest pitch or higher pitch. Then there is Gandhara, which is the Udatta. So Udatta is the middle pitch. And all the way towards the left is Rishabha, which is Anudatta, the lowest pitch. So if you want to find out the relationship between Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita versus the pitches, it is not Udatta being top pitch. The word Uda does not have anything to do with the pitch. Swarita is the highest pitch, Udatta is the middle pitch, and Anudatta is the lower pitch. So this is the relation. Now with this information, some of you might be in a better position to go back and try singing that Gananam Tvam, whatever was written on the slide, by using these corresponding swaras. So anytime you want to pronounce an Anudatta, pronounce it in Rishabha, automatically it will be Anudatta. So you don't have to put any efforts. As soon as you pronounce something in Rishabha, that Gatranam, Shithilata and all that automatically happen and it will be Anudatta. That's the beauty. As soon as you start pronouncing something in Gandhara, that Gatranam, Nigraha and all that will happen and it will be Udatta. And same for Madhyama and Panchama. So with this particular mapping, Swarita being higher pitch, Udatta being middle pitch, and Anudatta being lower pitch, now singing in those particular Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita might be quite easier. Let's move ahead. We have a few more slides to complete, probably 20 more minutes or so. So as somebody was asking a question, is there any relevance to the meaning of these Udatta, Anudatta and Swarita? So before that, even before you go to the meaning, the rule or the convention or the expectation is that Laukika Samskrute api sarve shabdaha swaraihi saha eva pathaniyaha. There is no assumption that Laukika Samskrita is without swaras and only Vaidika Samskrita is with swaras. This is how it has turned out. Kalaya tasmai namaha kalasya gatihi. But the rule says that Laukika Samskrute sarvepi shabdaha swaraihi saha eva pathaniyaha. Adyatana kale swarajnanam prayena luktam vartate kevalam Vaidika shabdanam uchcharane asya prayogaha kritaha asti. But again, the question is not yet answered. What happens if I don't use swaras? What's the big problem? The big problem is that the arthas of the samasta padas explicitly depend on the swaras. Samasta padasya artha nirdharane swarajnanam bahupayogi vartate. Kathamiti chet ekasya eva samasta padasya bhinnani vigrahavakyani yatra sambhavanti. So if you take for example Rameshwara, the samasta pada called Rameshwara can be broken down in multiple ways. Ramasya Ishwaraha Rameshwaraha. Ramaha yasya Ishwaraha Rameshwaraha. Ramaha cha Ishwaraha cha Rameshwarau. So how do you break that? It will decide the meaning. The meaning of Tatpurusha will be different. The meaning of Bahuvrihi will be different. And which breaking you should do just by listening Rameshwara, whether it is being considered as Tatpurusha or Bahuvrihi or yet another. Tat jnanam samasasya swaraihi bhavati. The way Rameshwara is pronounced with precise Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita ordering, a proper scholar person who listens to it will understand that if it is pronounced in a certain X way, it means Bahuvrihi. If it is pronounced in a Y way, then it is Tatpurusha and so on. And it matters even more in Vedas, because Vedeshu vidyamanani samastapadani uchitaihi swaraihi saha pathyante chedeva phalapraptihi bhavati. So Vedic rituals are to be done for phalaprapti. Now, if you pronounce them wrong and if a wrong meaning is generated, you will not get the desired swarga prapti and so on other phalas. So Vedeshu arthabodhaha phalapraptihi tadartham svarajnanam bahu avashyakam. And I'm going to quote some two very interesting examples over here. This is a line from Mahabhashya. Yadnikaha pathanti sthula prashatim agnivarunim anadvahim alabheta. This is a sentence in the Vedas. Sthula prashatim agnivarunim anadvahim alabheta. The meaning of this sentence is that a yajna is going on, and in this yajna, bring a cow for giving it as a bali. Anadvahi means cow. Alabheta, offer this cow in this yajna. Yadnikaha pathanti, the people who are doing the yajna are reading this mantra. What is the mantra? Sthula prushatim agnivarunim. So this is the name of the yajna, agnivarunim. And bring an anarvahi, bring a cow and offer it in the yajna. What kind of cow? Sthula prushati. Now there are two words over here. Sthula means fat and prushati means the one who has spots on its skin. So spotted cow. Prushat means spots. It is a takaranta napunsakalinga shabda. Because we are talking about cow, we are using sthula prushati. But the two words are sthula means fat and prushat means dotted or spotted. Circles are present on the skin. Now, when you read this particular mantra, tatra sandeha vartate. What is the exact meaning of sthula prushati? Are we talking about a cow who is sthula and prushati? So are we talking about a fat cow with the dots on the skin? Or are we talking about a cow who has fat dots on the skin? So sthula cha asau prushati cha. Are we talking about the cow who has two characteristics, one being sthula and other being prushati, means fat and spotted? Or are we talking only of the dots that are fat present on any kind of cow? So sthulani prushanti asyaha sa. So one way is karmadharaya samasa, tatpurusha, type of tatpurusha. So sthula cha asau prushati cha is karmadharaya samasa. Sthulani prushanti asyaha is bahuvrihi. Now, is this bahuvrihi or is this tatpurusha? If you don't understand and if you bring other type of cow and offer it in the yajna, that's useless. You are not going to get the desired phala. So, tam ityukte etadrushim kidrushim gam anaya etadrusham vishayam avayyakaranaha कीदृशः अवैयाकरणः स्वरतः अवैयाकरणः. The one who is like me, the one who is a non-grammarian when the knowledge of swaras is concerned. He may know all subantas, tingantas, krudantas and all that, but when the knowledge of swaras is concerned, he is not a vayyakarana. So swaratah avayyakaranaha tam na adhyavasyati. Not understand what exact meaning of that particular word is. And then he explains, yadi purvapada prakriti swaratvam tato bahuvrihi. So in the word sthula prushati, look at the swara of la plus a. Look at that swara. If it is udatta, then it is a bahuvrihi samasa. And otherwise, look at the swara at the end, the swara of ti, sthula prushati, that ikara, you listen to it. If that is udatta, then it is tatpurusha. So purvapada prakriti swaratvam, you don't need to go in the details of the word to word meaning. I'm just giving you the gist over here. So purvapada prakriti swaratvam bahuvrihi anto udattatvam. If the last letter is udatta, anta udatta, last letter is udatta, it is tatpurusha. So this is how simple pronunciation drastically affects the meaning. Same thing has been explained in Paniniya Shiksha. Mantraha hinaha swarataha varnatava. A mantra that is spoken which is lacking in letters. So you omit one letter, eat it out. Or it is lacking in swaras. You don't pronounce the udatta anudattas correctly, specifically for mantras. Mithya prayuktaha natam artham ah. It's useless. It does not carry any importance. Saha. In fact, it might cause reverse effect. A mantra is like a vajra, a weapon of your tongue. So Saha Vag Vajraha Mantraha. That mantra is a weapon of your tongue. And if you don't pronounce it correctly, Yajamanam Hinasti, it will fire back and kill you. So Yajamanam Hinasti Yatha Indra Shatruhu Swarato Paradhat. Very beautiful story. I'll take a minute or two and explain. So Twashta, he was the architect of Swarga. I think some of you know this story. So Twashta, who was the architect of Indra, he had a fight with Indra. He was considering Indra as his enemy for various reasons. Let's not go in the details. And then he decided to give birth to a son who will kill Indra. So then he went to his guru Shukracharya and he asked that give me a mantra by pronouncing which I will be able to give birth to a son who will eventually kill Indra. And the mantra that was given to him was Indra Shatru Vivardhasva. So there a small component of that mantra was Indra Shatruhu Vivardhasva. Shukracharya said, keep on speaking the mantra Indra Shatruhu Vivardhasva. But he said, remember, when you speak Indra Shatruhu Vivardhasva, the that comes after the Indra Shatruhu Vivardhasva, if you pronounce that that comes after the as Udatta, then it will mean Indra is powerful. And if you pronounce the last swara, Indra Shatru, so the Ukara as Udatta, it will mean your son is powerful. So meaning is going to get reversed. There is a little more to it, but I'll not go in those details. But this is the mantra and you pronounce it correctly. And then as the story goes, this Twashta made a mistake in pronouncing it. And as a result, he gave birth to Vrutrasura, who was killed by Indra. So instead of saying, let my son be powerful and kill Indra, he made a mistake in the swara, and as a result, Indra became the Maraka. So Shatru word means Maraka. So Indra Shatru means Indra Maraka. Then if you break it as Bahuvrihi, it becomes Indraha Marakaha Yasya Saha. Means this my son, whose Marak, whose killer is Indra. So instead of saying a Tatpurusha with Indrasya Marakaha, he said Bahuvrihi, Indraha Marakaha Yasya Saha, and he gave birth to a son whose Maraka, whose killer happened to be Indra. So a simple change in these swaras, Indra Shatruhu Swarataha Aparadhat Yajamanam Hinasti. The Twashta himself got the bad effects of that mantra. So this is basically the Udatta Anudatta Swaranam Prayogaha. And not just that, in Ashtadhyayi, you actually see the rules of Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita being coded. So these Udattatva and so on, we don't use in today's spoken language. That's a sad story. But there is a full support for this Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita in Ashtadhyayi. So for example, Ashtadhyayam, Dhatunam, Pratyayanam, Pratyayanta Shabdanam, Ityukte Subantanam, Tigantanam, Padanam, Udattadi swara sandarbhena niyamaha pathitaha santi. If the two swaras come together, one udatta and one anudatta, and undergo a sandhi, what happens? Everything is detailed out in Ashtadhyayi. So here are some sample sutras. I don't expect you to know any of them. I'm just giving as a flavor of the language or flavor of the sutra patha. So dhatoho antimaha swaraha udattaha bhavati. The last swara of dhatu is always udatta, is what Panini says. All the sup pratyas are anudattas, su, au, jas, and so on are anudattas. He talks about what happens in a sentence. So he says, yadi tingantam padam, tinganta bhinna padat anantaram vidyate. So if you have a configuration in a sentence where there is a tingantam pada called pachati, and just before that pachati, there is a non-tinganta. Obviously, all sentences will have that. So this is a very general rule. So before that pachati, there is a non-tinganta word. Say, so for example, devadattaha pachati. If you have such a configuration, then tasmin tingante vidyamanaha sarve swaraha anudattaha bhavanti. So everything in that tinganta becomes anudatta if that tinganta comes immediately after a non-tinganta. And so on. So there is sandhikarya related rules and so on. There are multiple rules over there. And not just that, but beyond Ashtadhyayi, there is a book. I'm going to talk about this book in a few classes later, maybe 4 classes later. But there is this book called Fit Sutrani, just like the way we have Shiksha Sutrani. we have a book called Fit Sutrani, and in these Fit Sutras, the only thing that is taught is the swaras. So it is a dedicated book on swaras. Like you have a Dhatu Patha, a dedicated book on Dhatus. In the same way, you have a dedicated book on swaras called Fit Sutrani. The first rule or the first sutra in that Fit Sutrani is Fishontah Udattaha. The meaning of this sutra is that प्रातिपदिकस्य अंतिमः स्वरः उदात्तः भवति. So you take any pratipadika, by default its last swara is udatta. Obviously, this is general rule. There will be multiple exceptions later on, and we are not learning Fit Sutras right now. I'm just giving a sample example that there is a separate dedicated book called Fit Sutras where it's not written by Panini Maharshi, it's written by Shantanavacharya. So separate grammarian has written this book, Shantanavacharya Praniteshu Fit Sutreshu Pratipadikana Udattadi Swara Sandarbhena, specifically for Pratipadikas, because other things are covered in Ashtadhyayi. In Ashtadhyayi, you have swaras for dhatus, pratyayas, pratyanta shabdas, padas, but you don't see that focus of the Pratipadika swaras in Ashtadhyayi. No idea why Panini left it out. But then Shantanavacharya has created a book specifically for Pratipadika swaras, gives detailed account on how the swara should be pronounced in a Pratipadika. And not just this, but in the creation of Ashtadhyayi, now this is very interesting, listen to this. In the creation of Ashtadhyayi, Panini Maharshi encodes secret information using Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, Swaras. So till now we were talking about Udatta, Anudatta and Swarita in spoken language. Like we should pronounce Udatta like this, we should pronounce Anudatta like this and so on. But now there is altogether different use of Udatta, Anudatta and Swarita inside Ashtadhyayi. It is used as a tool to secretly code some rules. So see this, for example, in the Dhatu Patha, if you see a Dhatu with an Anudatta second Swara, the second Swara must be Anudatta, then it is Atmane Padi Dhatu. So the padas of the Dhatu are encoded in the Swara format. Dhatu Pathe Atmane Padi Dhatunam Nirdeshaha Anudatta Swareణ Kriyate. The second Swara should be Anudatta, not the first. Ubhayapadi Dhatunam Nirdeshaha Swarita Swareణ Krutaha Drishyate. So there is this Dhatu called Du Pachash, basically Pachati, but it's written in the Dhatu Patha as Du Pachash. And the second Swara, Du is not considered a Swara. I'll talk about it in details in upcoming classes. But just take what I'm saying right now, that the Akara after Ch, that is Swarita. It's shown with a vertical line. It is Swarita, so Pacha Dhatu is Ubhayapadi. So the padas of the dhatu, which is always a question by beginner students. How do I remember if a dhatu is Atmanepadi or Parasmaipadi? Now the answer is simple. Learn Datta, Anudatta, Swarita and then learn all the dhatus with their swara markings and you're done. So jokes apart, but the Anudatta and Swarita information is encoded inside the Dhatu Patha. Similarly, not just that, I mentioned about the second swara. So the first swara, what is it about? So the idagama property, most of you know what is an idagama, right? Patha becomes patitva, that's the idagama. But kru becomes krutva, so that idagama is not coming over there. In the basic classes, you must have learned at least this word called idagama. So the idagama related information is coded in the first swara. So prathama swaraha anudattah asti chit idagamaha na bhavati, udattah asti chit idagamaha bhavati. So for patha, the prathama swara, that is pa plus a, that a is udatta, so idagamaha bhavati, you say pathitum, you say pathitva. And for kru dhatu, that rukara is anudatta, so it is not, idagama is not going to happen. So kakarottaha rukara anudatta asti idagama na bhavati, not karitum, but kartum or karta and so on. And not just that, so this was about Dhatu Patha. In the Sutra Patha, Panini encodes certain words with Swarita Swara, and he tells that these words have to be taken in the subsequent sutras for completing the meaning. So the way Sutra Patha is written is that every sutra as an independent entity doesn't really mean much. So for example, here I say I'm speaking two sentences. So first sentence is Atra Jalam Asti. And the second sentence is Tatra Api. Now, when you read two sentences together, you get the meaning. Atra jalam asti, tatra api. But if you read the second sentence alone, tatra api, the meaning is not clear. In order to understand the full meaning, the word jalam and asti must be brought down from the first sentence into the second sentence. Atra need not be brought. Atra jalam asti, that atra can stay in the first sentence. But jalam asti must be brought in the second sentence so that the second sentence fully becomes tatra api jalam asti, and then the meaning is clear. This process of bringing some words from the earlier sutras into the current sutra is called anuvrutti. We are going to learn about anuvrittis after 2-3 classes in details. But the question is, which word should I bring? The answer is given by the Swarita Swara. If a word is encoded as a Swarita Swara, it is a valid candidate for bringing down. If a word is not coded with the Swarita Swara, you cannot bring it down. So this way, even in the Ashtadhyayi, the Swaras are used to encode hidden secret information. So that completes our discussion on Udatta Anudatta Swarita. I'm sure a lot information given today was very interesting and mesmerizing. At least for me, some aspects were like ones that would give goosebumps. The way these Udatta Anudatta Swarita information gets coded for explaining Pada or for explaining Anuvrutti, and the details in our Shastra in which they have been explained. Now, there is one thing, as the course proceeds, there are some small chunks of the grammar text that you all need to memorize. Okay, it's going to be very small, and I might not give that exercise for every class, but whatever material is discussed in that class, if there is a corresponding passage in the grammar which is worth memorizing, I'm going to show it in this particular format with a brown screen, and you have to memorize it on priority. So let me read this today. Please, it's just 3 or 4 sentences, and every word must be clear by now because all the words were taken from the presentation itself. This is how the commentary looks like. This is from Siddhanta Kaumudi. So please memorize it. See what is written over here. Ach kramat hrasvadirgha plutasamnyaha syat. सप्रत्येकम् उदात्तादिभेदेन त्रिधा ताल्वादिषु सभागेषु स्थानेषु ऊर्ध्वभागे निष्पन्नः अच् उदात्तसंज्ञः स्यात् ताल्वादिषु सभागेषु स्थानेषु अधोभागे निष्पन्नः अच् अनुदात्तसंज्ञः स्यात् उदात्तानुदात्तौ वर्णधर्मौ समारीयेते यस्मिन् सः अच् स्वरितसंज्ञः स्यात् स्वरितस्य आदितः अर्धम् उदात्तं बोध्यम् उत्तरार्धं तु परिशेषादनुदात्तम्. So this exactly, without altering even one letter here and there, has to be memorized. This is not written by me. This is written by the great Bhattoji Dikshita in Siddhanta Kaumudi. So you have to memorize this, and in upcoming classes, some small 3 or 4 sentences, if relevant, not necessarily in every class, but if relevant, I am going to give for memorization. So here is now the homework for today. Sankshepena uttarata. I don't know if it's visible on the screen. Sankshepena uttarata. So 5 simple slow questions. And then the second question, adhodattani vakyani anuchitani santi chet doshan durikritya punah likhata. Uchitani santi chet kevalam uchitam iti likhata. So true or false. And if the statement is false, you have to make it correct and then write it. In addition, there is an additional optional activity. This is not homework. It's not going to be graded. You don't have to submit it, but I highly recommend it. Let me read it down. Developing an ear for the proper swaras and distinguishing between the pronunciations of the udatta, anudatta, and swarita comes with practice. Therefore, listen to this particular recitation. There is a YouTube link there. This particular recitation of Narayana Suktam, it's only 4-minute video. Listen to it multiple times and observe if you can identify the differences among the 3 swaras. And if you like this, then this particular channel has multiple such videos of Purusha Sukta, Shri Sukta, Medha Sukta, and so on. You can obviously spend your time over there. So I think that's all for today's class. I'm going to close now, but I'm happy to take all types of questions that you have. If there are no questions, we will close. One small note, we are going to have a class tomorrow. We finish the Kala Manusrutya and Swara Manusrutya. The next thing is Sthana Manusrutya, and it is a pretty big topic, but I want to cover it in a single class. So tomorrow's class is likely going to be 90 minutes. I'm sorry, but I need to finish the material. So tomorrow's class will be 90 minutes. We will start at the right time and we will go probably 90 minutes ahead. Try to sit through the class as far as possible. If you cannot, sit till the time you want and then listen on YouTube later on. Ratnakar Mahodaya, you have a question?
Pranamah Acharya. Acharya, I think you haven't said or rather explained anything about Yena Dauta Giraf Pumsa regarding that shloka. Not like Yavayasa. That shloka
Correct.
was explained, but whereas this was not explained.
Correct.
And
So
I just wanted to.
Correct.
I
Let me
just
talk.
wanted-
Let me correct. Let me explain this, and then if you have a follow-up question, you can ask. 90% of the questions in the homework will be from the slide deck. 10% will be your own work. So Yena Dhauta, I have not explained it. Yenakshar Samam name also, I have not explained it. I know it's your own work. Try to find it out. Otherwise, what is going to happen is that after the homework deadline is over, I'm going to upload the model answers in which you will be able to see all the answers in the detailed format. After that, if you have questions, you can definitely ask that. Even after reading the answer, I have not understood it. But
I have two questions as far as this particular shloka is concerned. Dauta is Akasha or Divyaloka?
Let's not discuss the homework questions right now because we still have the deadline. Let people try it out. We'll discuss them afterwards. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Feel free to. Astu, prashna nasti chet samapayama. We are going to meet tomorrow. As I mentioned, tomorrow the class is going to be slightly longer, but lots of very interesting things like makara, nakara, and anuswara, different locations of pronunciation, and much more things. So we'll see you tomorrow. Mangalacharanam krutva samapayami. अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता वेदानामुपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनिये नमः. शब्द ब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनिये नमः. येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनिये नमः. धन्यवादः.